Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. They're the hosts of the show, the power behind the program. Offices located in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and Morehead City. And folks, it's always about legal. They'll talk a bunch of different topics. Again, the latest, the headlines, what's going on with the Supreme Court, and then occasionally, which is always a lot of fun, we get listener questions, and that's what we're doing today on today's show. Josh, what is up next?
So I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. I'm going to call this just general getting an estate administration started, right?
Okay.
This happens. Our firm has an estate planning department, and then we kind of have an estate administration department, right? An estate planning department we've talked about a million times on the show, getting your will done, getting your trust done, handling your non-probate assets, and the goal is by the time you pass away, everything is automatically set up to go to the next generation, and you avoid probate, you avoid estate administration. That's what you're trying to avoid. Well, a lot of people don't avoid it. And so we handle a lot of estate administration where you passed away and either we can't find your will or well, that's not true. You just haven't succeeded.
Well, that could be true. I mean, you can theoretically, it could be.
Yeah, it could be true. We've got one now where someone passed away and they really weren't close with family. They weren't married. They didn't have kids. And
walked into a shotgun trap.
Yeah, no, but passed away, and no one knows if there's a will. No one knows where they banked. Today, a lot of people don't get statements in the mail. Back in the day, that's how you figured stuff out. Like if someone passed away that didn't have a spouse living with them or didn't have kids living with them, and you're going to try to administer their estate, well, you got to figure out what they own, right? You got to figure out what's going to be in the estate. And that is not really a legal problem so much as it is just you would collect their mail for a couple of weeks and you get some bank statements, you get some credit card bills, maybe the house mortgage, the house note, right? You'd figure out where things were. And for this one, we're having a hard time because everything was set up on email. And so they're working on getting into this deceased person's email account to try to figure out, well, what are we dealing with, right? We don't even really know what she has or what she owns. And so anyway, it can be difficult to just start the process. So if someone's passed away, you don't have to do it immediately, right? It's going to take a while to get a death certificate. Usually that takes a week or two. But you want to try to find a will. And North Carolina all changed a long time ago, like in the 80s, North Carolina back in the day, you get your will done and the attorney would take it down to the courthouse and register your will. And there'd be I was about to say database, but basically it was a book. It was books.
That's a type of database.
That's old school database. There'd be books. And so if Josh Whitaker, kicked the bucket, you go down there and you'd see I'd made a will in 1982 and there it is. And then you would the next step would be probating the will, which is getting the process started. But a lot of times just figuring out, it's different. If you live with a spouse and you guys have done a joint estate plan together, then the surviving spouse is going to know where everything is. Or, you tell your adult children, hey, this is where I bank. This is where stuff is. It's good to give them a general idea. Most attorneys, when you do your estate plan, they're going to recommend you kind of make a list of everything. So at the time I did this will, I had accounts at this bank, and my annuity was here, and this is where my investment account was, because somebody's going to have to figure that out when you're gone.
Yeah, tell your people your stuff, man. That's the recommendation, right? Like you don't want your folks to be flying dark, not knowing where anything is, having to do all that legwork. Make it easy on your people that you're leaving behind.
But so that's one of the first things we talk about when you come in and you say, look, so-and-so has passed away. Here's a will. That's the easy thing, right?
It's super easy if they got a will.
If that's a will, then your job's going to be a lot easier because it's
procedurally. Yes, not it's still going to be difficult emotionally.
Yeah, as a lawyer, you talk to so many people. Like everybody that comes into our office is either has a problem that they need our help to solve that's kind of gotten out of control, or they're planning to avoid problems, right? That's usually what we see. And so me and Joe, having been doing this for a while, we get desensitized to some of this. So if you hear us talking, we're not trying to make light of a very serious situation. We're just so used to talking about it and dealing with it. It's not a big deal anymore. But yeah, you're obviously probably not going to be super excited if you're in our office to start an estate for someone you knew well enough, where, like, for example,
that you're there. Yeah. If you're there. Yeah, exactly. And we say that, and that's not always the case, right? But 99% of the time, right? 99%.
So if you found a will, and the original will is what really matters. Copies of wills are nice because we know it exists and attorneys can use those for some things. But really what we're looking for is the original will, because that's the one you take downtown to probate, to open up an estate file. And a will's great because it'll tell us exactly who is in charge, right? It'll tell us who the executor is supposed to be. And so we'll already know who the executor is supposed to be. And there's usually some generic language in there that waives bond, right? So that's important. Otherwise, you'd have to post a bond. That means you'd have to get, depending on how many assets are going to be in the estate, you'd have to go buy an insurance policy that would insure the heirs if you screw it up. And so that's what a bond is. And the statute requires a bond unless the will waives it. And so having the bond waived is important. And knowing who's in charge, because otherwise, if you have that, then it's a lot easier to get an estate open. If you don't have that,
we got to figure it out.
Yeah, you kind of have to do a family tree, and there's a statute that says, all right, this is the person first in line to be. We don't call it the executor, we call it the administrator of the estate. And if that's like you and your 8 siblings could all qualify, then your siblings are all going to have to sign renunciations saying that, hey, I'm okay with this person being the administrator. It's not going to be automatic. So we're going to have to get stuff signed. And then we want everybody, in theory, to waive the bond, but we have to get everybody to sign a bond waiver. And so that's kind of a chore, especially if everybody's spread out across the state, or there's the one person in the family you don't get along with, that you don't talk to, but you need them to sign these things. That one person can really torpedo the deal, man. They can make it a lot more difficult.
And you could have just done a will and taken them out.
So I guess that's a advertisement to get your estate planning done. If you hadn't done it,
disinherit your crazy relative today.
It's not super difficult. The price of an estate plan has not. They talk about all these inflation numbers. It is not inflated. It's been pretty steady. It won't cost you too much money to get your estate plan done. But if you don't, there's really a mess, and we see the results of that all the time. And some people, I've heard some people say, well, I won't be around, so I don't care. You hear people say that?
I've heard people say that, man. I've heard people say that a lot, actually.
But you really don't want to leave a mess. If you don't own anything, I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because you got to own something to leave something to people.
But you don't want to leave a mess, man. It's not that difficult to figure these things out, right?
No. But just to give you some...
I was just going to jump in and say, but a lot of people procrastinate. I mean, you almost
need they do, especially on this too.
Yeah, I mean, you need to basically kind of rattle their cage a little bit when they get a little bit older, or at least start thinking about it. If it comes up in a discussion, you need to basically say, look, you need it. Absolutely need it.
Joe has spent a lot of time at our firm. We've tried to make our estate planning process much simpler.
Yeah, it's great. We have our clients watch the Final Destination movies when they come in. And no, we've really streamlined it, man. And I think we to toot our own horn, I think we're doing a really good job of making it streamlined, making it efficient, making it easy to understand, making it easy to digest. A lot of times you go in for an estate planning consult and you get so much thrown at you, and then you get all these documents thrown at you with chock full of this legalese. So we've really tried to condense that, include a lot of helpful summary reference information that hit the high points, and just kind of take a lot of the intimidation factor out of it. And it's been good, man. It's been good. We've really overhauled it in a positive way. So
we really try to, like Joe said, streamline it, and a lot of it you can do at your desk. Like a lot of we've tried to eliminate the time you have to spend making an appointment to go to an attorney, and you'll still sit down with us and you'll still talk to us. But we've tried to make it so that in your spare time, you don't have to miss work necessarily to get a lot of this done, and really try to simplify it. And it's worked really well.
Yeah, and that's what it should be, right? Like, I mean, it's already a morbid, difficult conversation and thought. It's a difficult thought train and path to go down. So, keep it simple. And while still providing super high level and high quality legal representation, just top notch.
If you have any questions about estate planning and maybe you're thinking, maybe I need to sit down and open one up, you can always talk to Whitaker and Hamer. You can call them 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about. And if it's about estate planning, obviously just put it in the message and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. Again, that number 800-659-1186, or you can email any question to the show dealing with legalese, questions at theoutlawlawyer.com, and we'll answer that on a future program. All right, we're back right after this, and we'll wrap this one up.